Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Judge Jeanine Pirro.
She's the outspoken host. Judge Jeanine Pirro is dominating the headlines right now.
This is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome, everyone, to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. I hope everyone is enjoying their Sunday so far. It's a beautiful day here in New York City. And as always, we are armed and ready to serve justice to all my great listeners here on the Red Apple Audio Network. It's been a very interesting week, to say the least. So in my opening statement, I want to talk about a couple of things. There is so much that happened this week in America, but I want to focus on the Secret Service for a minute or two. The Secret Service, now you recall that the new acting director, this guy Rowe, said they didn't need staff. And yet suddenly this week we found out that the Secret Service has a staffing shortage. And they're telling the Trump campaign that you can't have that rally in Wisconsin and you have to move it indoors to a smaller venue. Now, ain't that special, folks? The Secret Service that supposedly now is giving to former President Trump the same protection that they give to a president can't help him out with not that they help him out, but they can't allow him to do a rally outdoors. They have to do it indoors to a smaller venue. To me, this is election interference, but maybe that's going too far. The thing that I love about this is that they just gave a fortune to the Secret Service. Congress approved it. And we know that they are a bumbling, fumbling group of fools based upon the report by Congress. And in the end, what we have is a Secret Service that can't do half the job that local police and law enforcement can do. The Secret Service is a tired, lazy group, and I'm sure there are some great ones, so I want to make sure I exclude them. But if you have local police running around because there's a guy on a roof with a gun and they weren't even given the ability to communicate with the Secret Service, they didn't have a joint command center, and I won't go through all of it, but now they're saying we don't have enough people to protect you, former President Donald Trump. So why could that be? I'll tell you why it is. It's because the Secret Service is protecting every president, premier, dictator in New York City this week for the United Nations meeting, for the General Assembly. Now, Donald Trump doesn't have enough protection, but the Prime Minister of Iran, who has threatened to kill President Trump, along with several of the people in his administration, is being protected by Secret Service. Now, I have a source that tells me, formerly with presidential protection, that there is a garage in Brooklyn and they have hundreds of cars. What are these cars used for? They're used to make sure that whether you're from the Congo or the UK or Italy or Iran or Egypt, we're going to provide you with 6 to 8 cars for you, your wife, your gamad, your kids, whatever, everybody you want to bring. We give them our Secret Service. We give them our cars. Now, as one who works in Manhattan, I'm tired of the General Assembly meeting in New York City. They do nothing but gridlock the city. It's like the city's on lockdown. And we've got a prime minister who wants to kill Donald Trump, and we don't have enough people to protect Trump, but we're protecting him? Tell me that's not crazy. Tell me that is not foolish. And when we've got someone who is threatening to kill and there are apparently 5 different attempts to kill former President Trump. Why are we even letting this guy in America? We shouldn't even allow him in here. It's about time New York City ended this Secret Service protection to all of these dictators and presidents and premiers in New York City. You know, it says the Secret Service says our personnel and equipment are being pushed to their limits to sustain the current operational tempo. And this Wisconsin event is taking place during the week of the United Nations General Assembly, where Secret Service is responsible for the safety and security of over 140 world leaders amid a challenged global level. I have an idea. You want to come here? Fly your own cars, fly your own security, and take care of yourself. Otherwise, get an Uber. Call an Uber. We'll give you the number. Okay? Take the Secret Service off of these world leaders. Let them bring their own. Take care of Americans. Take care of an American there's been an attempt on his life twice. They actually shot him once. And you're telling him, oh, we can't give you enough because we have to take care of these tin pot dictators? That is absurd. I'm sorry, folks. It just makes no sense to me. And the more we do this, the more we look ridiculous. So that's my thought. That's my opening statement. And one more thing about this guy, Roe. He says, we need a paradigm shift. Damn right you need a paradigm shift. You need to get rid of the upper level of the Secret Service. Roe, instead of telling Congress, and Rand Paul said that you lied to Congress, instead of telling Congress everything is okay, why don't you got a gun? Why don't you get out there and protect the president? You're not running an agency that is operational and one that is capable of even protecting a president on his own golf course where he golfed for 4 years. That's not new. And in Butler, what Congress found out, Democrats and Republicans, was that no one was in charge. That's how disorganized the Secret Service is. And I'm sorry. I am sorry that I'm going off on them. But you know what? They deserve it. That whole upper echelon has to go. So a lot going on that to follow up on. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Hogan Gidley. We've only got about 40 days left before the election. And Hogan Gidley, as you know, was the communications director during the Trump administration and is now senior comms director for the American First Policy Institute. I'm also going to be speaking with David Avella, who is the CEO and chairman of GoPAC, which is a state and local PAC that supports candidates nationwide for congressional race and statewide races, which are so important to the presidential race. So up next here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show, I will be speaking with Hogan Gidley, coming up right here on the Red Apple Audio Network.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Investments, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Judge Jeanine.
Hi, I'm Jeanine Pirro, and this is Protecting Your Investments, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Today, we're talking about the economy. Do you feel good about the economy? How bad is inflation? How bad are your expenses? Does it cost more to live today than it did 4 years ago? Do your groceries cost you more? Money is important. And the only thing that you can do to guarantee the safety of your money is to invest with Colonial Metals Group.
It's the Judge Jeanine Show. This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Joining me now is former White House Press Secretary Hogan Gidley, who is now the senior comms advisor to the American First Policy Institute. And you have seen him on television, and you've also heard him on this show before. Welcome to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation show, Hogan. Look, we have something like 40 days left before the election. People are already voting. in some parts of the country. Where are we? They say it's a dead heat. What will break this dead heat?
Well, it's going to be the blocking and tackling. Listen, a lot of interesting things going on right now. It looks like the entrenched voters for Trump are there. They're not going anywhere. Entrenched voters for Kamala Harris are there. They're not going anywhere either. So you're setting up something where potentially it's an outside force that could change the trajectory of this election right now as we see it, or change the stalemate, if you will. If there's a war that breaks out between Israel and Lebanon, or something else catastrophic with Russia and Ukraine, who knows where the voter will turn to at that particular point in time. But nonetheless, I think it still comes down to the non-sexy parts of politics, the blocking and tackling, the nuts and bolts. This is about voter registration, voter mobilization, poll watchers, poll workers, ballot chasers, where you can do that, ballot harvesting, where it's legal. Those are the things that really get the numbers solidly in your corner. And if you don't have those ground games, then it's very difficult to kind of solidify a win, much less change any trajectory of where the race is. But I will say this. If you go back and look, and I think this is really important numbers-wise as we're talking about kind of the state of the race, because Donald Trump right now is outperforming where he was previous. So on
you mean in 16 or 20?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, in 16, his national average was 44.3, and he outperformed that by 3 points. So around 47 is where he ended up.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And that was 2016. In 2020, he was at 43% at this time, Real Clear Politics average, and he finished 4 points better than that on Election Day, still around 47. Right now, he sits at 47.2 already. So if he gets that extra 3%, he's over 50%. This race is over.
Yeah, but why?
A lot can happen.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
No, you're fine.
But everybody's saying it's a dead heat. You're counting on his outperforming his numbers.
I'm not counting on him outperforming. What I'm saying is, if past his prologue, this has happened in the last two cycles, and at this point in time during the election, as we kind of get a little nerdy here, Judge, he's outperforming where he was in 2016 and 2020.
Fantastic.
Because, see, what you've seen is governing from a different group. Now we have that whiplash effect of, wait a minute, I could afford gas and groceries a few years ago. Wait a minute. I didn't have illegal aliens taking over our healthcare system, our college tuition funds, our neighborhoods, our hotels, our apartments. I didn't have wars breaking out all over the world. That whiplash effect has given Trump, I think, a better representation in the electorate right now, who said, okay, I may not like everything about Trump. I may not like everything about Kamala Harris, but I know this, my life was better off. My potential future looked brighter with Donald Trump in the office. You know
what's interesting, with young people and who don't remember 2016 to 2020. They were either, living with their parents or, too young to even think about it. Where are they going? Does it depend upon their age, their ethnicity? Some of them are pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian. I don't quite understand. That's the youth vote. Where are they right now?
Well, interestingly enough, again, from what I've seen, Donald Trump is outperforming past Republican presidential candidates, including his old campaigns, with the youth vote. I don't know if he's made enough ground to actually make it change, because Kamala Harris is obviously really leaning in heavily into young people. But there has kind of been a resurgence, as you've seen, with groups like Daily Wire and Turning Point, really targeting young people. And they're starting to mobilize and move toward our side on certain things. Who knows where it's going to go? But you just mentioned, remember, these kids a few years ago, whether they live with their parents or not, they were forced to miss graduations. They were forced to miss their prom.
But who are they going to blame that on?
Well, exactly. At the time, though, remember, when Joe Biden got elected, he kept them out of school. He still kept them shut down in this country. So I talked to someone the other day who was very apolitical, and again, this is anecdotal, but a friend of mine who has children in college, high school, and one that's out of college. And he said their kids told them at the dinner table, we aren't going to forget whose fault this was. And he's not political either way. He just said they remember they had a chance to go back. The all clear was given, and Joe Biden was the one who kept them locked down, kept them away from their friends.
Yeah, well, if we could get that message out there, I mean, then, and if they make that connection. But, Harris now is doing all these interviews with Stephanie Ruhle and Oprah Winfrey. And even the New York Times says, she gives roundabout answers, and if I hear her say one more time, I grew up middle class, and I consider the ambitions and the aspirations of what has she done?
Yeah, it's so funny because they're in a weird spot, are the Democrats. They want her to be out there to try and fix some of the damage that her policies have caused. They want to get her out there to explain where she's going to go. The problem is once you do that, then she becomes unlikable. Very radical, unreasonable, because no one understands what in the world she's saying. Every time she's had a campaign that has had any length to it, she's crashed and burned eventually, right? She did that in 2019. Never got a vote in the primary, obviously.
Yeah, but nobody cares about that anymore.
Well, but they care about the fact that she can't answer questions. You see this regardless of demographics. You're hearing this like that was a bunch of gobbledygook. And credit to the American people who are paying attention going, I thought they'd hear that and go, that's so flowery. They're going to love it. So the theatrics of the pausing and the sincere words, they realize she says the word inspiring or a derivation of the word inspire 4 times in the same sentence.
How about holistic?
Like,
that's the latest.
What just happened here? Yeah. What just happened here? And I think people are realizing that.
I don't know. I hope so.
I hope.
Anyway, Hogan Gidley, we love having you on the show. It's good to have a few laughs. It is it's a very interesting time right now. Everybody is working to the bone on this. It is a very, very tight election. We'll see what happens. We love having you on the Tunnel to Towers show. And I hope that you come back. In the meantime, get out there and keep fighting. Hogan Gidley.
This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Joining us is a political leader. He's the CEO and chairman of GoPac, and he is a good friend. I have known him for many years. He's the guy who's always in the trenches, running around the country, working with local and state leaders to not only get the local and state leaders elected, but to work on the national and help the national ticket as well. He's a seasoned communications professional and a political leader, and he's a frequent guest on a lot of national television shows, including mine, when I have my Saturday night show. Okay, David, look, first of all, welcome, but I want to talk to you about where we are. It is Sunday morning, and we are in an incredibly tight race. How's it going? What's going to happen?
You say it quite well. We are in a very tight race, and there's no better example of that than you look at a state like Wisconsin, where in 2016 and in 2020, the winning candidate, Trump in 16, Biden in 20, won by 1 percentage point. What's that equate to? That's 25,000 votes. 25,000 votes in the state of Wisconsin are going to be what determine who wins that state, and ultimately will have a huge impact on who our next president will be. And, if you can say today where those 25,000 votes are going to go, you should go to Vegas and make yourself a lot of money. But even if it went from 1% to 2%, you're talking about a state with millions of residents. 50,000 people are going to have a big say in who our next president's going to be. And that ultimately is who turns out, who actually goes and casts a vote, whether it's early, whether it's absentee, whether it's on election day. That's going to have a big impact. And not only would that be the case in Wisconsin, it'll be the case in Michigan. It will be the case in Pennsylvania. And those, folks want to many pundits talk about North Carolina and Georgia and
Right.
Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Those are states that we as Republicans, those are traditionally and historically our states. That's putting us at ground zero. The battle is in those three states we just mentioned, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And that's why you see that Pennsylvania is getting more advertising dollars from the two presidential campaigns than all the other states.
All right,
And
David
why-
Avella, let's talk about Pennsylvania. So this past week, Volodymyr Zelensky ends up going to a munitions factory in Pennsylvania. I mean, talk about, having a national, an international leader involved in our politics. I was flabbergasted, and it was so blatant that the Democrats are like, yeah, we're going to bring this hero in. I mean, what was your take on that, and how will that impact Pennsylvania?
It will have no impact on Pennsylvania, particularly if we Republicans focus on the fact that her energy policy would be devastating to the state of Pennsylvania. And
but
workers,
David, she wants to frack now.
she wants to frack at least for the next 2 months, 6 weeks. There is nothing. I mean, keep in mind, Judge, you can't get away from what the Biden-Harris administration has actually done. Remember, they are the ones tapping unnecessarily into our oil reserves because philosophically they think we need to be getting rid of and moving away from fossil fuels. That's what this administration has worked 3.5 years for. And whether it be making it harder to produce energy in America or, as I just said, taking steps like tapping into our oil reserves so that those are gone. So we have to start looking for other sources of energy and buying it from folks who don't like us. That's what they've actually done, not what she's actually talking about right now.
But here's
voters
the
in
problem.
Pennsylvania need to be told that.
Well, here's the problem. She's actually saying, that she's into fracking, and she is also they've tapped the oil reserve. It's like the lowest. It's like half of what it was when Donald Trump was there. And yet, they say, oh, no, we're doing everything we can to promote it, which is a lie. And by the way, statistically, according to the polls, they see her as a change candidate. So as hard as we try to connect her to Joe Biden, I think the public is seeing her as somebody new, according to the polls. Am I wrong? Tell me.
You are correct in that they didn't want Joe Biden, and so she's not him. So check the box. Okay, she's not him.
Okay.
We have to continue putting out and telling folks her actual words. We don't have to make up her words. We actually can use her words, what she has said previously, not during the last 3 months of the presidential race, but what she has stood for, what she has voted for, and what she has actually said in previous years. We remind folks, again, you're talking about such a small sliver of voters who are persuadable to go one way or the other or are truly still undecided. And it's hard to believe folks are undecided at this point. But you still do have a percentage of voters who are undecided, not sure what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to give them the information to help them make the right decision in that Republicans governing would move us away from the disastrous policies of Biden and Harris.
Well,
we have to continue pounding that message.
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny. Sometimes I think everyone's singing to their own choir, David Avella. But, do you think she'll pay a price, Kamala, for not picking Josh Shapiro, not just in Pennsylvania, but around the country? Because there are those who believe that he was like everyone else. The only difference was that he was Jewish.
You and I have talked about this before. Walz was picked off the tradition or what has been the standard operating procedure of presidential nominees, both sides, quite frankly, for the last at least in modern times, which is you keep the base happy. You put someone whose governing philosophy and style is the same as yours. And whether that be Barack Obama with Joe Biden, whether that be Tim Kaine with Hillary Clinton, whether that be President Trump at that time with Mike Pence, who philosophically they were aligned and worked together. I mean, just go back through history. It's about keeping the base happy. And that's what she did. And that's why Tim Walz got selected, because as crazy as it may sound, he is more progressive than she is.
There's no question he's more progressive. He wants tampons in boys' bathrooms. I mean, you know, and the guy is a liar. I mean, you know, he ditched his battalion before they went to Iraq. He said he carried weapons of war. He never went to war and carried weapons. I mean, you know, he's not even a coach. He was an assistant coach. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. But nobody seems to care. Is the hatred for Donald Trump that great that people like Stephanie Ruhle on MSNBC will say, you know, I don't care if she makes sense. You know, she's not Donald Trump.
It's funny that you bring her up in that this is Stephanie is apparently or bills herself as a journalist to report the news, and yet then makes comments like you just pointed out. And yet she gets the second interview of Vice President Harris after Oprah Winfrey. I mean, you can't make this up.
Well, look, Harris is only going to go with friends. I mean, even Oprah had to say, well, can you answer the gentleman's question?
And then she doesn't, and they move on, right?
Yep.
It's you know, and you think about that. There's the domestic policies which drive most Americans' vote. But you think about the foreign policy side. We know so little about her governing philosophy when it comes to what she would do as commander-in-chief. And that doesn't mean she's not qualified to be commander-in-chief. We just don't know what approach she would take if she were commander-in-chief. And given how unstable the world is, there are going to be a sliver of voters that will concern them and should concern them.
Well, when you say we don't know what approach she would take as chief, I mean, I can't help but remember when she visited Ukraine. I think she was in Poland, and she was asked the question, you know, will you take refugees from Ukraine? And she went, bada-bee, bada-bop, bada-bum. And then the Polish prime minister started to answer, and she said, a friend in need is a friend indeed, and cackled. I mean, we know what her approach is. She's a leftist. She's a leftist who is incompetent to discuss world issues. You know, I looked at a map and I know where that country is. I mean, really? Am I wrong, David?
We're saying the same thing is that we don't have any idea what she's going to, because she does not. She's not articulated. She has not articulated a governing philosophy.
Yeah, but based upon the way she has acted as a DA, as attorney general, as a senator and vice president, whether it is the fact that, you know, she is into bailing out criminals during the 2020 riots and who then goes on to kill somebody, or whether she wants to decriminalize the border, or whether as DA she had a program for illegal immigrants so that they could get out of felony crimes, and she's in favor of sanctuary cities. I mean, you've got to be able to put her in a particular circle. I mean, has she been capable at all of discussing any issues?
Well, add to, you had a great roster of some of her best hits. Add to that, given her position on immigration, is there any belief that as president, she is going to call the president of Mexico or any of the South American countries and say, look, for us to keep working together, you have to get a hold of things in your country and have folks follow the process for coming to America? You think she's going to do that? Absolutely not. And now you have Mexico talking about the Panama Canal is not serving trade well, and they want to create their own route. Now, I from a trade perspective, is that good for the United States or is that not good for the United States?
Yep.
What's her position on this?
Yes. You're never going to know. You're never going to know. And by the way, I'll tell you what her position is on world issues, David Avella. She was the last one in the room, okay, on Afghanistan. And if that isn't probably the most embarrassing situation that occurred on a military level by moving out of Bagram, which was a base, and moving into a one runway in Kabul and having the military leave before the civilians left. I mean, that says it all. She doubled down on it. So that's her position. 13 Americans died, and they didn't even call the families. And if they have, they've done it recently when it's 3 years since that happened. All right, final thoughts, David Avella. What are you working on now? Where are you going? Where is GoPac going? Tell us what you're doing.
Well, we're working to help get a number of 8 state legislators who are running for Congress, getting them here to Washington, Tim Moore in North Carolina and Briley Moore in West Virginia, not related, working to help Tom Barrett up in Michigan, which would be a pickup opportunity for Republicans.
These are Congress?
In Pennsylvania. These are all for Congress.
Yeah.
At the state level, not unlike the presidential. I mean, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, all the battleground states at the presidential level also happen to be where we're fighting for majority control at the state level. And so ultimately the work GoPac's doing in the congressional and in the state level ultimately have a big impact nationally. And that's why this is so rewarding to work on.
Well, there's no question that what you do is you pretty much are building the foundation at the state and local level that obviously benefits us on the national level and obviously with the congressional races as well. David Avella, I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us, and I am sure that we will be talking to you before the election. Get out there and get those votes. David Avella, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
take care. And always remember, we promised that we would never forget. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
This is the Judge Jeanine Show. This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Now it's time for me to gavel out with my closing argument. Okay, folks, we've got 40 days. That's not a lot of time. Some people have already started voting in certain parts of the country. You know, I fear that Kamala Harris, who is now seen as a change candidate, and everybody loves, a picture of her smiling and isn't she pretty and all that. But my fear is that we don't know enough about her, that she's only spoken with friendly people, whether it's David Muir and Lindsay Davis and then Oprah Winfrey, who to her credit came out and said, but his question is, after Kamala did one of her mumbo jumbo salads, and then, of course, with Stephanie Rule, who even said, Kamala, that's not, quite accurate. We've got to make sure that you take this seriously. Nothing is already won or already lost. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to win or lose when it comes to your economy and your pocketbook. And I think it's very important that all of us recognize, not just in terms of foreign policy, that we're on the verge of a World War III, but in terms of just going to that grocery store that you go to all the time. You've got to be able to take care of your family. You've got to be able to do what little you want to do with the money that you have. And you've got to be able to go to that grocery store that you go to all the time and buy what your family needs. You shouldn't have to always worry whether you have enough money to pay for what's in your basket. There's no question consumer confidence is at a very low level. It is, because we're still in the Biden administration. Things will change under Donald Trump. You know it from 8 years ago. You know it from 4 years ago. That's all I can tell you. Think about yourself. Think about your family. Think about what's going on at the border. If you want more of that, vote for Kamala Harris. All right, everybody, I can't believe we're out of time. Make sure you join us right back here next week, same time, same place, for the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Have a great day, everybody.